There are foods in the US that look completely normal, but aren't necessarily what the name makes you believe you're buying. In 2016, one tested sample of grated Parmesan contained about 8.8% cellulose. In seafood testing, DNA has also shown that fish sold as white tuna was actually a different species. In this video, we're going to look at 30 fake or potentially misleading foods that Americans still buy every week. Not all of them are illegal or dangerous, but they all lead to one question. Are you really getting what you think you're buying? 30. Vitamin water. In the morning, you open the fridge and see two choices: a can of soda and a bottle with vitamin water, written in huge letters on the label. The name alone makes the second bottle sound like the better-behaved choice. That's the power of the word vitamin. It creates the feeling that you're choosing a better kind of water before you even read the nutrition facts. But a 20-ounce bottle of dragon fruit vitamin water currently has about 100 calories and 27 grams of added sugar. It may be different from soda in terms of ingredients, but a healthier-sounding name doesn't automatically turn it into plain water. The product has even been involved in legal disputes over how health benefits were presented in advertising and marketing. And this is the important part. The vitamins in the bottle aren't fake. What can be more misleading is the healthy feeling the name can create. So let the nutrition facts label make the final call. Sometimes the first thing you drink isn't the water. It's the story the name told you before you opened the cap. 29. Fruit juice cocktail. Pick up a bottle of fruit juice cocktail. Bright red cranberries. Apples, grapes, and berries covering the front. In just a few seconds, it can land in the cart feeling like a better choice than soda. But the important question is, what percentage of what's in the bottle is actually juice? A pretty clear example is Ocean Spray Cranberry Juice Cocktail. This product is about 27% juice. The first ingredient is filtered water, followed by cranberry juice concentrate and sugar. So what is the rest of the bottle? In this case, the formula also includes water, sugar, vitamin C, and vegetable concentrates used for color. That's why phrases like 100% juice, juice drink, fruit juice cocktail, or made with real juice shouldn't be treated as the same thing. The front gives you the feeling of fruit. The juice percentage and the ingredient list tell you what the formula actually is. The picture of an apple may take up half the label, but what determines what you're drinking may be just one very small number on the back. 8. Non-dairy coffee creamer. Nobody stands in front of the fridge at 7 in the morning and asks, "What substance is making my coffee smooth?" People just do what they've done for years. Pour the coffee, add a little coffee creamer, stir, drink. For many people, that ritual has gone on for 10, 20, even 30 years. What's interesting is that non-dairy coffee creamer doesn't have to be real cream to do its job. Vegetable oil can create richness. Emulsifiers help the ingredients blend together. Sweeteners and texture-building ingredients help the coffee feel softer and smoother. In other words, the formula doesn't need to become cream. It only needs to make the coffee feel like cream was added. And this isn't a story about being afraid of every additive. The story is that a long-standing habit can make us stop asking questions. If something has been with you every morning for 20 years, maybe it's worth turning the bottle around at least once. 27. Blueberry products. Cut a muffin in half and you see blue-purple spots inside. Your brain barely needs any more information. Blueberries. That's the interesting thing about color. Sometimes it identifies the food before your taste buds do. But in some mass-produced foods, pieces that look like blueberries can be made from blends of fruit, concentrates, starches, sweeteners, flavorings, or colors to create that familiar look and feel. This also ties into a very practical challenge of large-scale production. consistency. A real blueberry has no responsibility to look like the one next to it. It can be bigger, smaller, darker, or softer after baking. A factory is different. Millions of baked goods need to have relatively similar color, size, and experience from batch to batch. So next time, don't just look at the blue spots. Look at what the ingredient list actually calls them. Sometimes the first thing that makes shoppers believe they're eating blueberries isn't the flavor. It's just a blue spot. 26. Strawberry yogurt. A cup of strawberry yogurt has one very powerful advantage before you even open the lid. It doesn't have just one healthy signal. It has three: yogurt, fruit, probiotics. Each one sounds pretty positive on its own. When they appear together, it's very easy for shoppers to feel like they just made the right choice for breakfast. And that feeling of reassurance is the interesting part. Some strawberry yogurts may contain less strawberry than the image in our minds suggests, while sweeteners, flavorings, and colors help complete the strawberry experience. So the story here isn't whether the yogurt is real or fake. The story is that three positive signals added together can make us judge the product before we finish reading the ingredients. If you want a quick check, look at where strawberries appear on the ingredient list and whether they come before or after the sweeteners. It's a small detail, but it can tell you quite a lot. Sometimes the thing being sold most in the cup of strawberry yogurt isn't the strawberries. It's the feeling that you just chose a breakfast that's good for you. 25. Pancake syrup. There's a flavor that many Americans have known since childhood. Hot pancakes, a pat of butter, and amber-colored syrup running down the edge of the plate. In memory, that's simply maple flavor. But maple flavor and pure maple syrup are not necessarily the same thing. Real maple syrup requires large amounts of tree sap and time to boil it down into the finished product. Pancake syrup can rely on cheaper sweeteners and then add maple flavor to create that familiar experience at a lower cost. Here, the biggest clue is actually right on the front of the bottle. Maple syrup and pancake syrup are not two names for the same product. Many bottles even make it pretty clear that they are pancake syrup or table syrup. It isn't necessarily lying. Sometimes shoppers simply add the word maple in their own minds because the color, flavor, and breakfast memories are so familiar. Many Americans knew maple flavor from childhood before they ever knew what real maple syrup actually tasted like. 24. Margarine spread. Go back to the 19th century, and margarine began with a very practical need: create a lower-cost alternative to butter. To replace butter on the table, it had to do more than provide fat. It needed to be soft enough to spread, feel rich when eaten, melt over food, and just as importantly, look enough like butter that shoppers immediately knew how they were supposed to use it. That's why the yellow color once played such a big role. Imagine the exact same tub of spread, but pale white. Would your brain still connect it with butter that quickly? Over time, that substitute no longer lived only in butter's shadow. It developed its own brands, formulas, and group of users. The thing to remember isn't about choosing sides between margarine and butter. It's how a product created to replace something else can become so familiar that its original purpose almost disappears from memory. Sometimes imitation becomes so successful that a few generations later, we forget what it was originally created to replace. 23. Brown bread that looks whole grain. Put two loaves of bread next to each other. One pale white, one dark brown. Just by looking, many people will immediately give the second loaf a badge: more whole grain. But brown color is not a nutrition certification. A loaf looking darker isn't enough to prove that whole grains are the main ingredient. Bread at the grocery store also has to do more than a loaf that gets eaten right away at home. It needs to stay soft, survive transportation, keep a relatively consistent shape, and sit on the shelf long enough before reaching the table. Those demands can make an industrial formula more complicated. But the number of ingredients isn't the most important thing. The type of flour at the top of the list is what's worth looking at. If your goal is whole grain, check whether whole grain flour actually appears first, instead of letting the color make the decision for you. Brown is what your eyes see. Whole grain is what the ingredient list has to prove. Processed cheese slices. For this one, don't just look at the big word cheese on the package. Read a few more words right after it. Cheese, processed cheese, cheese food, cheese product. They sound almost the same, but those labels can tell you that you're holding different kinds of products. A processed cheese slice can combine cheese with milk proteins, emulsifiers, and other ingredients to create something a regular slice of cheese doesn't always do as well. Melt evenly, keep a stable texture, and give you nearly the same result every time you use it. That's why it works so well on a hot hamburger or grilled sandwich. The thing worth learning here isn't a list of unfamiliar-sounding additives. It's in the exact name the product uses to describe itself. If you want to know what kind you're buying, read the entire product name instead of stopping the moment your eyes catch the word cheese. If a product has to add a few words after cheese, don't skip those words. They're trying to tell you what kind of product it actually is. 21. Whipped topping. A slice of pie has just been set on the table. On top is a white, soft, fluffy, sweet layer. Nobody stops the meal to start an investigation. The brain just says whipped cream, and that's exactly what makes whipped topping such an interesting substitute. It doesn't need to have the same formula as freshly whipped cream. What it needs is to look right, feel right, and work right when it's put on dessert. The formula can be designed to hold its shape longer, stay more stable after being frozen and thawed, and collapse less than freshly whipped cream. That's a very practical advantage for a product that needs to go from the factory, through the freezer, and then onto a pie in your kitchen. The success here doesn't come from inventing a completely new experience. It comes from recreating an experience that's already deeply familiar. It doesn't succeed because it looks different from whipped cream. It succeeds because it's similar enough that very few people feel the need to ask. If by now you've thought of at least one item sitting in your own refrigerator, give the video a like. But from here, we're changing direction. The next foods are no longer mainly about names, images, or marketing. We're starting to look at how food is processed, how its texture is changed, and how it's designed to work more conveniently in modern life. 20. Pre-shredded cheese. Buying a block of cheese and shredding it yourself versus opening a bag of pre-shredded cheese may seem like the only difference is a few minutes of work. But the bag has to solve a different problem. How do you keep thousands of strands of cheese from turning into one big clump before you use them? That's why pre-shredded cheese often has anti-caking agents added, so the shreds stay separate, pour out easily, and remain that way inside the bag. The cheese is still cheese. The difference is that it has been prepared to behave more conveniently. This also explains why cheese shredded from a block and pre-shredded cheese sometimes don't feel exactly the same when they melt. One prioritizes the original nature of the block of cheese. The other also has to prioritize packaging and quick use. You're not paying for fake cheese. You're paying for cheese to behave more conveniently. 119. Grated Parmesan. There are phrases on packaging that sound like they leave almost no room for questions. 100% Parmesan. But in 2016, Independent testing of some grated Parmesan sold in the US turned those two words, 100%, into the part of the container most worth checking. The results released at the time showed that one product contained about 8.8% cellulose, another about 7.8%, while another sample came in at 3.8%. Cellulose is not some mysterious poison. In grated cheese, it can be used to prevent clumping and keep the cheese particles from sticking together in one mass. The controversy was about how much was used and the expectations created by the claim on the label. After those test results, lawsuits appeared over how some Parmesan products were labeled. But the more serious part came from Castle Cheese in Pennsylvania. Federal records showed that some products sold as Parmesan or Romano actually contained other types of cheese and ingredients that were not properly reflected on the label. The companies involved later pleaded guilty to introducing misbranded and adulterated food into commerce. This is not a story about scary cellulose. This is a story about what shoppers were promised and what they actually received. Sometimes the words 100% aren't the end of the question. They're the reason to start checking. 18. Instant mashed potatoes. A potato starts the story in a very ordinary way. It gets washed, cooked, then mashed. But instead of going straight from the pot to the table, that potato continues on a different journey. The water is removed. The potatoes are dried into thin flakes or granules, packaged, shipped, and can sit in the pantry for months. Then one night, you open the box. Add hot water or milk. Stir a few times, and what once had its water removed returns to something close to the form it had before. A bowl of mashed potatoes. That's the appeal of instant mashed potatoes. Shoppers trade some of the texture and experience of fresh potatoes for time, storage life, and convenience. Depending on the product, the formula may also add salt, fat, or flavoring to make the result more consistent after rehydration. These aren't fake potatoes. They're potatoes that went on a very long journey just to come back to a bowl looking like mashed potatoes. 17. Vanilla-flavored products. Vanilla has a pretty strange problem. The world wants its flavor for far more than the amount of natural vanilla beans that can be produced cheaply. Vanilla plants need the right growing conditions, a lot of labor, and time. In many growing regions, the flowers even have to be pollinated by hand. And then the harvested beans go through processing and curing before developing that familiar aroma. Meanwhile, demand shows up everywhere. Ice cream, cookies, yogurt, drinks, cereal, and thousands of other products. If all of them depended on real vanilla beans, the cost would change significantly. That's where industrially produced vanillin becomes important. It helps manufacturers recreate the main flavor note consumers recognize as vanilla at a lower cost and with a supply that's easier to scale. You don't need a conspiracy to explain this. You just need to look at supply, demand, and production capacity. The gap between vanilla flavor and a real vanilla bean is sometimes bigger than shoppers realize. What's common around the world isn't the vanilla bean. What's common is the flavor the food industry has learned to recreate from it. 16. Chocolate. Coating on the shelf, two snack bars can look almost identical. Both are covered in a shiny brown layer. Both make you think of chocolate. But sometimes just a few small words on the package signal two very different formulas. In traditionally made chocolate, cocoa butter plays an important role in texture and how it melts in your mouth. Some coatings instead use other vegetable fats or oils to create similar shine, firmness, and mouthfeel at a more manageable cost. The clue is in words like chocolate, chocolate-flavored, chocolatey, or simply coating. The difference isn't only about flavor. Cocoa butter is a high-value ingredient, and its cost can fluctuate. Alternative fats help manufacturers create a stable coating that's easier to produce at scale and fits a target price point. Sometimes one small word on the label is a sign of an entire formulation decision behind it. Two bars may both be covered in the same shiny brown layer, but one story starts with cocoa and the other starts with a cost spreadsheet. Up to this point, most of what we've seen has still been about substitutes, convenience formulas, and the way language creates expectations. But the remaining 15 foods move into an area that's harder to see. From here on, the front of the package is no longer enough to answer the question. We're starting to get into origin, blending, identity, and differences that the naked eye can barely check on its own. Chapter 15. Honey, just spend a few minutes searching online, and it's very easy to come across a big claim. Most honey sold in the US is fake. That sounds scary. But newer data shows the story needs to be told more carefully. Honey fraud is real. One method is adding cheaper sweeteners and then selling the product as pure honey. In fiscal year 2025, the FDA tested 102 honey samples, including 54 samples produced in the US and 48 imported samples. The result? 4 samples, or about 4%, were found to contain undeclared sweeteners. That number is worth paying attention to. But the FDA itself also notes that this sampling program was not designed to estimate the fraud rate across the entire US honey market. In other words, the data confirms that the problem exists, but it does not provide a basis for claiming that most honey on store shelves is fake. That's what a fact check should do. Not deny the problem, but not exaggerate it either. A problem doesn't have to happen in every bottle of honey to be worth caring about, but it also doesn't need to be exaggerated to be worth talking about. 14. Cinnamon. A little cinnamon in your morning oatmeal, a little in your coffee, then some s'mores and baked goods over the weekend. Each time it's only a small amount. But when that habit repeats for years, one detail starts to become worth knowing. What kind of cinnamon is in that jar? Two common names are cassia and Ceylon. Cassia is the type commonly used in the US and Canada. Ceylon usually has a lighter, more delicate flavor. But the more important difference is in coumarin, a natural compound found in cinnamon. Cassia usually contains significantly more coumarin, while Ceylon generally contains only very small amounts. At normal amounts used in food, this usually isn't a major issue, but using high amounts over a long period may be worth paying attention to for some people, especially those with liver sensitivity. Calling cassia fake cinnamon would misrepresent the issue. It's a different type of cinnamon, with different chemical characteristics. The jar may just say cinnamon, but for something that goes into your coffee every morning, knowing whether it's cassia or Ceylon is the detail worth remembering. The 13. Bottled water. A premium bottle of water often comes with pictures of mountains, springs, and words like pure, natural, pristine. So what's being sold isn't just water, but also a story about where the water comes from. That doesn't mean bottled water is low quality, but the price of a bottle of water also includes the plastic bottle, cap, bottling, transportation, distribution, and branding. So the mountain on the label doesn't automatically prove the water is cleaner or better. It mainly helps the product feel more special and more valuable. In a bottle of water, you're not just paying for the water, you're also paying for everything that makes it look more premium. To 12. Turkey and ham at the deli counter. At the deli counter, the question worth asking is, what is actually in 1 pound of the product? Some turkey or ham is made from whole cuts of meat, but some types are restructured from multiple pieces of meat, then have brine or seasoning solution added to improve tenderness, flavor, and moisture retention. That matters especially when the product is sold by weight. If the meat holds extra water, that water also contributes to the number on the scale. So 2 slices of ham that look the same may not have the same ratio of meat to water. The wording on the label about added water is worth more attention than how perfect each slice looks. At the deli counter, water doesn't just make the meat more tender. It can also become part of the weight you're paying for. 11. Bacon bits. Real bacon contains fat, needs proper storage, and can't sit on the shelf as long as a dry topping. That's why some bacon-flavored bits are made differently. Instead of starting with bacon, the formula may use soy, then add oil, color, salt, and smoke flavor to recreate the familiar signals. Reddish-brown color, crunch, saltiness, and smoky aroma. When those things show up together, people can still easily think of bacon, even though the product doesn't need to recreate the whole piece of meat. Some bacon bits aren't trying to become bacon. They only need to recreate the right color, crunch, and memory of bacon. From the top 10, the word fake starts to become more serious. We're moving from substitutes to hidden origins, replaced ingredients, and cases where the product may not match what shoppers believe they're getting. 10. Chicken nuggets. A chicken nugget is small, golden, and crispy, and almost identical to the pieces next to it. That uniformity is the clue. A nugget usually isn't a natural piece of meat cut into such a perfect shape. The chicken can be ground or finely chopped, blended, shaped, breaded, and then cooked. That doesn't mean the nugget isn't chicken. It shows the difference between a piece of meat that was cut and a product shaped from meat. Large-scale production needs consistent size, texture, and cooking time, so nuggets are made to be nearly identical. No chicken grows up in the shape of a nugget. That shape is created to turn chicken into a more uniform, tender, and easier-to-sell product. 9. Guacamole, avocado dip. Guacamole has a very clear problem. The ingredient that makes shoppers want it most is also often the most expensive ingredient: avocado. Avocados ripen easily, discolor easily, and are difficult to keep stable in large-scale production. So some avocado dip products may include oils, starches, or other ingredients to create richness and thickness. The green color doesn't tell you how much avocado is actually in it. What's worth looking at is the percentage of avocado and where it appears on the ingredient list. If avocado is the reason you're buying guacamole, then the avocado percentage matters more than the green color. 8. White tuna and escalor. You order white tuna at a sushi restaurant. The white, soft, rich piece of fish looks completely consistent with that name. But DNA testing has shown that some samples sold as white tuna were actually escalor, a different species of fish. Once the fish has been sliced, diners can barely tell the difference just by looking at it. Escalor also contains wax esters that the body has difficulty digesting and can cause gastrointestinal discomfort in some people if eaten in large amounts. So this isn't just about the name or the price. The customer is trusting the restaurant to correctly identify the species of fish on the plate. The menu may call it tuna. Your eyes may agree, but DNA doesn't read the menu. 7. Wasabi. A lot of people have been eating wasabi for years, without necessarily ever tasting real wasabi. Japanese wasabi is difficult to grow, expensive, and its fresh flavor changes fairly quickly after it's grated. So in many places, what's served next to sushi may be mostly horseradish, mustard, and green coloring, creating that familiar spicy sensation at a lower cost. What makes this substitution work is that diners may have been used to that version from the very beginning. If green horseradish is what you've always been told is wasabi, you almost have no other standard to compare it with. The substitute only has to exist long enough to become what shoppers automatically assume is the original. Fake wasabi doesn't win because people prefer something fake. It wins because many people have never met the real thing. 6. Truffle oil. Just a few drops of truffle oil can make fries, pasta, or pizza feel more upscale. But real truffles are rare and expensive. So many truffle oils may rely mainly on aroma compounds mixed into a base oil, rather than containing a significant amount of truffle. Economically, this is easy to understand. Instead of using a lot of an expensive ingredient, manufacturers only need to recreate truffle's strongest signal, the aroma. Just a small amount is enough to give an entire dish a sense of luxury. Sometimes truffle oil isn't selling truffles. It's selling the feeling that the dish just got upgraded. 5. Extra virgin olive oil. With extra virgin olive oil, the issue is more serious because it can involve food fraud. Testing has found cases where oils were blended with cheaper types, failed to meet extra virgin standards, or were labeled in ways that misrepresented their quality and origin. The difficult part is that shoppers can barely verify any of this just by looking. A dark bottle, a beautiful label, or a high price are not solid proof, so information like origin, harvest date, trustworthy certification, and producer reputation is more valuable than home testing tricks. A bottle can look completely premium. The harder part is verifying whether the oil inside truly deserves the words extra virgin. 4. Imitation crab. Imitation crab may be one of the most honest fake foods on this list, because the truth is usually right there on the package. It's usually made from surimi, finely ground white fish, often something like pollock, then blended to create a texture and flavor similar to crab meat. If the label clearly says imitation crab, the product isn't really hiding what it is, but those familiar red and white sticks in sushi or salad make the brain call them crab before we read the full name. Here, the shape can sometimes be stronger than the words. This may be the most honest fake food in the video. It tells you it's imitation, but a lot of people still see crab first. 3. Grill marks on frozen burgers. Those dark brown lines on a burger make people think of a grill, smoke, and freshly grilled meat. But with some processed products, grill marks can be created or enhanced during production. Their value lies in flavor expectation. When your eyes see char marks, your brain may prepare in advance for a smoky, fresh off the grill experience. Before you bite into the burger, your eyes may have already tasted the grilled flavor first. 2. Frozen dairy dessert and ice cream. Some cartons in the freezer look almost like ice cream, but say, frozen dairy dessert. In the US, ice cream has a specific standard of identity. If the formula doesn't meet the corresponding requirements, the product has to use a different name. So the most important clue is right on the package. The words ice cream don't appear. Sometimes what matters isn't the ingredient list, but the product name it's allowed to use. 1. Seafood species substitution. When a fish is still whole, the head, skin, scales, and shape help identify the species. But after it's filleted, frozen, or cooked, those clues almost disappear. If an expensive species is replaced with a cheaper one that looks similar, it's very difficult for shoppers to detect just by looking. That's why DNA testing matters. It directly answers one question: what species is this really? Species substitution isn't just about price. It can also affect allergies, dietary choices, and sustainability decisions. When the name on the label is in doubt, DNA is the hardest evidence to replace. After 30 foods, the important thing isn't to think that all processed food is fake. Some are simply legal substitutes. Some are designed to be more convenient. Some create stronger expectations through names, colors, or marketing. And in more serious cases, the ingredients or even the identity of the food may be different from what we think. You don't need to stop buying everything. Just read more carefully. The product name, the first ingredient, the percentage of the main ingredient, and the origin of premium foods. Because in the end, the goal isn't to be afraid of food, it's to know exactly what you're paying for. Of the 30 foods today, which one surprised you the most?